From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Hello.
It looks exactly
Hello.
as if we were watching with a corpse.
Oh, there you are. I was afraid for a moment that you had forgotten our appointment.
Good evening. This is Sergeant X. They say that ghosts and the like just don't exist.
You remember me, don't you? I'm your host on behalf of the makers of Carter's Pills, and you're to be my guest tonight in the mysterious circle of the inner sanctum.
Well, unless you think more of a large fat fee than you do of your life, I advise you to throw up the case at once.
Apparently, we don't look at this in the same light, Mr. Dalrymple. I expect danger, and I'm prepared to meet it.
Hello. Hey, welcome. So glad you're here. Oh, please. Thank you. Welcome to the Man Alone Solo Role-Playing YouTube channel. I'm your host, Man Alone. And, usually the Man Alone After Dark type show that I do is a little more loosey-goosey, a little more fly by the seat of your pants, go over lots of different games and stuff. But not this episode. This episode is going to be as goal-directed as is possible for me. Because the reason I did the Man Alone After Dark intro was because I was like, come on, I've got to. Because today, after 6 weeks of very little sleep and probably two to 3 points increase on my diastolic blood pressure, I am done with Outer Darkness. Which is my solo role-playing game that is based on it is a distillation of my understanding, my convictions regarding the encounter with the shadow, confronting the shadow, but it also has components of active imagination. It has components of making peace with your past. It has a lot of different things that I've talked about on this channel. My goal with this game, my major goal with this game was to create a play experience that embodied that, both in the setting, slash, like story, if such a thing could be said for a generative RPG, but also in the mechanics. Okay. And so I'm going to talk a little bit today, about this game, and, it is, like I said, it's over 100 pages, so I'm not going to be able to do a full video on it yet, but I did want to put out something just in case people were wondering about it, wanted to know a little bit more about it. I'm going to give an overview of the idea of the game, as well as the major components mechanic-wise of the game, just to let you know what kind of experience you might have. Now, I came up with a formula on my last book, which was Flint, that I found that I started getting a little bit stressed, like writing-wise, about an average of every 9 pages. Like, I'm able to write about 8 pages without really feeling any kind of way about it. And so I came up with this thing of like, okay, 9 pages is where I feel like I've done a unit of work. And so I tried to say I will charge for a PDF $1 for every 9 pages that my thing is. Okay. Now this is 112 pages, and so that would say that it would be $12 ish. So I probably will price that, but for the first month, I'm going to put it on sale for everyone for $5. So if you're interested in getting that, the link is below to drive through, and you will get the PDF for that. I'm going to tell you my vision for this game on the medium and long term. And the reason why I'm selling it for $5 is because I'm sort of taking that other $7 and paying you that $7 to have a little bit of patience and collaborative attitude, if possible, because I think I finished the game to the point of being able to publish it a week ago, but I then started getting into a rut where I was just recursively tweaking and changing and shifting and I would make like a little change over here, but then that would shift something over here out of place, and then I would fix that. And it got to the point, very much due to the encouragement and support of the SEAL Team Waffle Alpha, which, by the way, the link, if you are a SEAL Team Waffle Alpha member on here, subscriber for $3.99 a month, you get access to the Discord. We now have a waiting room, so there's no messages to me or the moderators anymore. You go in the waiting room and they'll verify your membership. Also, those of you who submitted the podcast, I cannot wait to listen to those this weekend. BB and I will take a look at them and let people know who won that. These are so good, and I will also post all of those. Had a little contest last month. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's fine, don't worry. I'll have something else soon. But yeah, there was a lot of encouragement there, and just to kind of say, put it out, and just to let people know that it's a living document or so for the first month. So after a month, the price will go to $11.99, and so it's not like if you get it now for $5, you'd have to like pay for that again. You'd get all the updates along the way, so it'd be the same. But it's just kind of a way for me and my own peace of mind to know that maybe there's a place where I forgot to put in like an internal hyperlink. Maybe there's somewhere where I put a +1 where I should have put a -1. Being a one-man operation, it's hard to get it like really, really perfect. And I wanted to have a way to say, please enjoy this, explore this. The game is done, and as far as like the game is complete, all the pages are there, so there's not going to be there's no part of it that says like under construction and then parentheses that say I'll have a combat system here one day. Maybe the only thing like that I might add is a crafting system, but we shall see, because this is a part 1, but it is a standalone game. Okay. And so I think, even though this sounds like I'm going to get bogged down in this, I think talking a little bit about the genesis of this game will actually help people understand it a little bit better. I told you what it was about, but here's how it started, is that, and this is actually one of the best ways to figure out what you want to do creatively, is when you have this happy accident. And this happy accident goes like this. You either buy a game, or you, in any other way, play a game, check out a game, get interested in a game. And when you finally sit down and play it, it's not what you had expected or wanted. In my case, it was still a good game, and I thought it was cool. And some really nice pieces of the bleakness. You should check this out. A big part of it was this hardcover was $50, and that's hard for me. I know I have sort of like a proletariat mindset with those kind of things, where it's like I judge how good the nachos are by how many times I get to press the squeeze cheese, and that's not all there is to it. But when I did get it, I was excited because the game involved like a road, and I remember that I'd looked through it enough to see that there was this piece here that had some like traveling mechanics and bartering. And I got very interested in this, and I was like, oh, this is really cool, because I especially like this for the idea of solo play. This game is not a solo game. That's another piece of it. But I had this idea in my head of a line, right? Rather than this big grid, I was like, what if there's a game with a line? And you're just moving along this line, right? And this started to intersect with a bigger idea that I had about the pilgrimage. Okay, and a pilgrimage is like the idea of a pilgrimage looms very large in my life. Ever since I was a teen, I always felt like a pilgrimage was something that could heal some part of me. And it wasn't even necessarily like the holy, sacred part of it. I mean, that was a piece of it. But I became obsessed with the idea of just like walking in a way, in a very goal-directed way, but in another way with like no idea what's coming or why I'm doing it or whatever. And I think that I realized once I put those ideas together that I was like, oh yes, this game that has been sort of like marinating inside me for a while, these are the pieces that I needed because, again, Bleakness it's a nice game, but it was not what I thought it would be. There's only a very light mechanic there. The game is not emergent, like it has kind of a set storyline with different beats. It's kind of cool, but it's not it's one of those games that is actually quite resistant to solo play because it does have like story beats. But that was the accident that I needed to be like, well, that's what I wanted. It wasn't quite that. So what if I made that, right? And this fit very well into my idea of how can I create a game that distills this idea of the encounter with the shadow. The pilgrimage seemed to be a good model for that. And suddenly I realized it was like the outer dark just started filling itself in, like bleeding, like ink bleeding upwards through paper, started showing itself to me. And I knew that I needed to really burn rubber to get it done, which was a mistake. I should have taken a little bit more time with it. Not that I think it's ultimately I did the right thing by taking 3 times as many weeks as I said I was going to. I guess 6 times because I originally said I would finish it in a week. And I had about 70 pages at a week, but I was like, this is a chaos. So I did take a little bit longer, but I definitely overdid it. And this is a final piece of my maturity I need to work out, which is I call it the hot Cheetos problem. When I start eating hot Cheetos and my mouth starts burning, rather than like just stopping or pausing, I will just rapidly eat the remainder of the bag. And then I'm like, I'll just hurry through this and then I can deal with my burning mouth when I'm done. And so now I'm like, my mouth is burning because I'm very fatigued. And I also have like a lot of games that I want to show all of you on the channel. I have games I want to play and I'm really backlogged with a lot of stuff. But okay, but I'm done. Hey, buddy. And so there is it had a sort of like idea behind it. It had a grand vision to it. It had this notion of the pilgrimage as sort of like the way to frame it, and I needed to fill in the rest of it. And the other thing that I needed was mechanics. And in terms of creating a solo game, this is something that I was a little bit worried about. And I'm reminded of this every once in a while, but I was reading a game the other day that reminded me of the fact that people who make group games with GMs have no idea how good they have it. Like making a solo game is, we do not have the option that is taken so often. And you notice this if you start playing a lot of solo games and then you look at games that are not designed at all with the solo player in mind, they kind of bail on complex. Bail sounds bad. They're not abandoning it, but they're able to say, oh, this is what you want to do here. This is how the bartering system works. This is how the crafting system, this is the combat. And if you come up with this situation, just ask your GM, or like the GM and the player can figure this out, or the GM will make a decision on this. And it's like in solo play, you can't do that, or you can, but the player might feel lost, or they might feel like I can't fully be fair to myself. That's a big challenge with creating solo games, is like rerouting our volition so that we are kind of tricking ourselves or randomizing ourselves or flummoxing ourselves, frustrating ourselves. And so it is a challenge, and I've been a bit afraid of it. I've been able to make books that give guidance. I've been able to make books that are like supplements, but making a game, that was big. And so as soon as I admitted to myself that I was afraid of that, then it was on, because I would say one of my strongest values is that like being afraid of something is never the correct reason for not doing it. You could be afraid of it if it's dangerous, but then it's danger that you're avoiding, not fear, right? And there's nothing dangerous about this. It was my own ego, my self-esteem, my thing of saying like, I have this solo gaming channel, so people are going to expect me to make a perfect game, and and what if I don't meet all of my goals, and what if I don't pull it? And that's easy. I didn't. The game is not perfect, but it is mine, and I went as hard in the paint as I could. And I learned a lot about preferences that I have and what I want out of a game. And I also learned what an art form it is to make a solo game, because not only did I want this dude, he's like, you can't see it, but he's got like a little streak of red on his back, and I wonder if that is like a paint brush of mine that I accidentally painted him. Anyways, it's a little ant. I don't know if anyone can even see that. I wanted to make it rhyme with Jung and shadow work and stuff like that, both the content of the game and the mechanics somehow. I wanted it to be syntonic, like I wanted it to hum. That's a big ask, like it's one thing to say I want to make it work. It's another thing to say I want to make it hum. And I can say that I'm confident that I made it work. I think the reason why I'm paying people $7, I love saying it like that. The reason why it's $5 for the first month is because I think there's one of the things that's hardest when you're making a game alone is balance. And so I know that there's some balance stuff that needs to be worked out. Things are maybe a little bit too strong, a little bit too whatever. So we'll see. And it is part 1, okay? And the reason it's part 1 is because Outer Darkness is not actually the name of the game that I was creating. The name of the game that I'm creating, I haven't said yet, but we're on our way, because part 2 is going to be the second part of this game, which is Inner Light. Okay. And the idea that I have, let me actually switch to PDF here. All right. So let me just say this really quick. I talk about this in a little bit of a forward in the Outer Darkness. This is the TOC here, is that some people have writer's block. Some of us have the opposite. Okay. And I think the way that I referred to it is writer's runway, where when I start getting momentum, I can't stop. I can't stop writing. And this sounds great, especially if you're somebody who struggles with writing. But what it seems like at first, and to somebody who hears this, would be like, say you have 10 pages to write, and you're writing at an amazing clip, and you go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're like, great, you're at 10 pages, you're done. But what you didn't see is that, like, the denominator goes faster than you write. So now that I've written 10 pages, I actually need 10 more pages to write my whole idea. So then I speed along to 20 pages, and now I have 37 pages that I need to write. And then I hit 37, and now I have 55 pages, and now I have, and it just keeps going. And so when I got to about 100 pages, I was like, this is unreal, because the other motivation for this game was this game by Nate Treem, Tunnel Goons. And this is actually the DNA of these mechanics. We are still in the game. This is a very, very simple game that I just absolutely fell in love with, because every time I go on a vacation, I always try to find one game I can fit in here. And it actually ended up being Dungeon Reavers by Gnarled Monster. And it's just these little booklets, but they use the Tunnel Goons system. And I will explain the Tunnel Goons system only because it is the foundational system. And I can explain it in about a minute. Basically, you have a difficulty score. And just like anything else, you have 3 stats: brute, skulker, erudite, which is like strength, agility, intelligence. You have 10 HP, 8 inventory slots. You distribute 3 points between these classes. Anything you add to your character is +1. You have a sword, +1. Okay, shield, +1. And you do a 2d6, 6 plus 2, and you add your stat. Say that I have 2 brute, 6 plus 2 is 10. And then I have a sword, I have 11. And before I even roll, I would set a difficulty score for something easy, 8, moderate, 10, hard, 12. Okay, that's like a skill check, right? We're all familiar with that. What Tunnel Goons does is it also makes it so that combat is a skill check. And so say you're like, okay, this is a moderate enemy, and I roll a 10, I roll an 8, +2 for brute, 10, +1 for my sword, 11. Okay, I beat the difficulty score of 10 by 1 point. The difficulty score is the enemy's HP. So now their difficulty score is 10 minus 1, 9. So now I roll again, and I've got to meet or exceed 9. And I did that, right? Because +2 for my brute, +1, 10, I took off another point. And I loved this. I just was so smitten by this because, don't get me wrong, you don't have to have a Fields Medal in mathematics to know that this is not a balanced system, that this system leads to a lot of arbitrary outcomes where it's like you can suddenly just have a really strong monster and you have a great roll and it's one shot. The same thing can happen to you on the opposite end. It doesn't scale well. There's all sorts of problems with it. But this is what's important, is that this little line at the top is not just a throwaway line. It says this is an analog adventure game for nice people. This is a game for people who are not too worried about that stuff. And because of that, I love using Tunnel Goons to explore adventures and settings that I just want to like surf through. It's kind of like if a video game has creative mode, that's what it does. So it's like, it's something more than reading, because I can sort of try my hand at some things and I can get in a little bit of light combat. I don't like really complex combat. So it has a little bit of randomization. There's some stakes, but not much. And it just works. It lets me kind of crawl through something that I otherwise, I've seen like some 5e compatible settings or adventures that I'm like, I don't want to set up a whole solo 5e thing for this, but I'd like to take it for a spin. Tunnel Goons is perfect for that. And so I was like, I want to extend this, add a little bit to it, and use this as the basis for my game and see if I can make it a little bit more balanced. But ultimately, this game is about exploring yourself and not about exploring things perfectly like that, okay? And so that I said, look, you know yourself, Malone. You're not going to be able to write a 1-page game. Write a 10-page game. That's doable. So it was when I was on a page 100 of my 10-page game that I was like, I'm screwed. Because at that point, I was like, I think this game is going to be 250 pages. And if it's 250 pages, I can't do that. I can't do it because like, it's just too much. Like it was bloating, right? And this is the next happy accident that I saw something that I have picked up a bunch of times, but only looked at the cover and immediately put it down, which is Electrum Archive. I've shown this on the channel a bunch of times. Another thing that I have a huge crush on is this game. And it always said issue 1. And I would say, wow, this looks nice, but too bad it's just like a zine. I wish it were an actual game. Well, it is. And this is the most amazing thing by Emil Bovin. In the inside, it basically says, this zine's a collection of basic rules and procedures along with an intro to the setting. This overview is an incomplete overview. It's enough to get you started. There are no pre-made adventures. The goal for this issue is to establish the tone and vibe of Orn, that's a setting, while providing you and your group some funky building blocks for which to build your own adventures. Later zines will include more table-ready material and dive more in depth to locations. All of this means that there are a lot of gaps. Some of these gaps might get filled, some might not, and that's okay. And I was like, yes, I can make a part 1, right? Because that's what he's doing here. And so it's like this game is a game. It just is sort of separated into 2 things, but it's still like a game. And especially as a solo player, we know how to fill a lot of this stuff in. Now, I had a little bit of a different stipulation. I was like, I want people to be able to pick up part 1 of my game and play it, but I can take some pressure off of myself to have it completely done. Again, why I'm charging $5 for it until it's polished into a reasonable shine, and that's for me, right? I'm not trying to say I'm magnanimous. That's so that I was able to release it and feel okay about it, because I definitely think a lot about the consumer and about what this money means. Okay, so the idea now is get some feedback. If there's gaps or things we need to fill in, some of that I can put in part 1, and then some of that I have part 2 already ready, because part 2 flows very naturally from this, from my whole vision of this from the very beginning. Okay, and so I'm being a little bit vague right now, so let's just like put some brass tacks to it. So Outer Darkness happens to be the name of part 1. Okay, it works, but it is not the full name of it, because once I get this in ship shape and I can say, okay, I got this pretty much as far as it can go, then when I'm ready again and I've recovered, right, it takes a little bit of a refractory period between games, we will then work on Inner Light. So we have Outer Darkness and we have Inner Light. Inner Light is part 2, and this is my idea. And again, I don't know if this is possible given how printing is, but the vision I had was that you have Outer Darkness. It's just like this, except it would be like this. Or I guess it would be like this. For the print edition, my idea, and this is not just like a fun little gimmick, there's a reason for this, and we'll get into it, is to have Outer Darkness here, Inner Light here, and the game runs backwards until you get to the middle, and then it starts running forward. And so the idea originally that I had was a game that you not only can play from both sides of the book, but you also, remember I talked the road in the bleakness, I wanted it to be a game that you can start on either side of the road, and not just like just to put a like a little dot on one side of the road or the other. There are different things on different sides of this road, and I think I'll stop there to say any more, because I want to maintain part of the fun of Outer Darkness is what is really going on in this world, and it's very hard for me to be vague because I love to be over specific. But my vision was to have a game in which we confront the shadow. And I think a lot of people talk about shadow work. I find it that I'm probably experiencing something that is very similar to what people have been doing, like meditation, yoga, mindfulness, probably felt around 2008, where like, hey, here's this thing that nobody really knew about. Maybe people even made fun of me. Maybe not yoga, but like mindfulness. And then suddenly it's like on a magazine cover and checkout line of Whole Foods. I got Man and His Symbols when I was 12. And so Jung has always been this thing that I would like evangelize to people. I would talk about Jung, and I would talk about shadow work, and I talk about active imagination. And I really felt that it was important. And then when I finally hit rock bottom in my life and was like, oh, I need to stop talking about it, I need to start doing that, I realized that what I call the work, which is the actual stuff you need to do to recover, a lot of people like talking about the work. And they also even like recommending it, but not a lot of people can really tell you how to do it. And the reason for that is it's not like giving instructions on making spaghetti. It's like giving instructions on making grandma's spaghetti. You have to make grandma's spaghetti, right? There's no way to transmute that information to you. It has to be like your seasoning here, okay? And so I think rather than trying to say what a lot of people want to hear, what people are hungry to hear is, how do I confront my shadow? What do I do? Well, you got to confront your shadow. How do I do that? Well, you gotta like your shadow is the part of you that you hid, so you got to confront that. How, right? And the reason why people struggle to say that is because you are the only one with that roadmap. And so my thought was, well, I can't solve that necessarily or answer that. I can do something by creating a story out of how I see it. And then both of these together, when I finish them and they're combined, and anybody who, if you purchase Outer Darkness or Inner Light, have a like a discount for when the physical copy is made. Hopefully that'll be within this year, but I think it'll be within this year. The actual game I've been thinking about and working on for a long time is I Will Always Haunt You. Okay, and that is what Outer Darkness plus Inner Light is. I Will Always Haunt You. And so, and I know that title maybe is a bit weird, but there's a reason for that title. Okay, and so that is why it's a part one. I don't want, and I say that because I don't want people to feel as though it's like, oh, so I get half a game or I get like half rules, and you're going to have the rules. And in fact, Inner Light is in a way going to be the same game, but backwards and from a different perspective. Okay. I gotta stop myself because I don't want to give everything away, and I'm not trying to be coy or anything. It's just that this is a vision of how what I wanted to try, and it's ambitious, but that's okay because I think we can afford to be ambitious sometimes, even if we fall on our face, because then we can push things forward for other people. And I do think there's a lot of people who are doing. As I was making this game, you always find games that are like very similar to your game while you're making a game, and I have to almost put a moratorium on looking at any games, but because very often you're like, oh, this is just like my game but better. Anyone know where a fireplace is? I'd like to throw my game in there. But of course a lot of people are making similar type games. First of all, because there's nothing new under the sun, and second of all, because like this is we're writing about these universal experiences, and so that's a beautiful thing. And really, people that talk about like, oh, I wanted to make this game, but there's one that's just so similar. Yeah, no matter what game you make, there's going to be something similar. Make your game. Make your game, right? There's room for your game, and if there's not, people will just. It's not like people are going to take pitchforks and bricks and Molotov cocktails and be like, unpublish your game, how dare you. Anyways, all right, so like I said, I'm massive fatigue here, but I do want to say just a few things about some of the prominent mechanics in this game. We could talk about it more as my brain cells begin to regrow. But Outer Darkness is, the basic premise is this. You are somebody who has taken the oath of ether, okay? And the oath of ether means that you drink from the lethawood tree, the berries from it. So it is equivalent to the Men in Black, like little thing for your whole life. You don't remember anything. You have muscle memory still. You're kind of Jason Bourning it, right? Like if you used to know how to, like field dress a wound, you still know how to do that. But who you are, you don't remember. You live in the clearing. As far as you know, as far as anyone knows, the clearing is the only place on Earth. Nobody has ever arrived from the outside, or at least nobody good, because surrounding the clearing is where it is not safe. And the reason is not safe is because the clearing is protected by a child queen injured unto death. she dreams, and it creates this brilliant net of light that keeps the clearing safe. It reaches a little bit out into these other areas, but the further out you go, the more dangerous it is. And so right outside the clearing is the dim. And then beyond that is the verge. And beyond that is the outer dark. Okay. And nobody, people who take the oath of ether, eventually they can go into the dim, they can go into the verge, because they need to train and find resources to prepare themselves. But when they go into the outer dark, they cannot come back until, and the rule is, until you bring news of something other than trees. Okay? Like, we know there's trees out there. We need something else. And so nobody has ever come back that went into the outer dark. Okay? That we know of. And in fact, they think that there might have been a world here. There's like artifacts laying around. There's old stuff, but nobody really knows. Okay. And one of the reasons nobody really knows is because this is a society that is controlled by a court. And there's a major court and a minor court. And I won't get into all of it, but basically the major court is the triarch, and this is the abbess, the bishop, and the bureaucrat. And the abbess, bishop, and bureaucrat, they don't want you to think. They don't want you to have opinions, because this is why the child queen was injured unto death, is because everybody had these lives. They worshipped their lives. They worshipped their narrative. They were so invested in this that the most important person, the person who they should have protected, they let her almost die. And now she is stuck in this liminal space between life and death. And even there, she protects, right? And she sleeps, and her dreams, they provide this light that is so powerful that little droplets of it sometimes find pieces of shadow in the woods and just encircle that shadow and create these little pearls called umbral. They're the currency of the world, right? It's like this little thing of light capturing shadow, and that's such an important idea for the people that live in the clearing of like the victory of her light over the shadow, that it's used as a currency. But if you go into the outer dark, eventually there are people out there that not quite sure what the deal is with them. But in the dim, there's two like wardens, okay? And in the verge, there's 3 necromancers or mancers. And then in the outer dark, it is said that she is still out there. The hag, the mother of all bastards, the crone. Okay? Now, you are not able to know who you were. You're not even able to know why you took the oath of ether. Some people take the oath of ether because it's their sentence for a crime. Some people, it's because they've always had one person every generation in their family that goes and takes the oath of ether, because that is a very noble thing to do, to try and either vanquish the crone once and for all, or to find another place besides this one. Is anyone else out there? Right? But either way, you don't know, and you can't know, because, don't you understand? It's knowing, needing to know, needing to understand. This is what led to the child being in the state that she is. And if you go out into the outer dark and you are filled with this knowing, this arrogance, the narcissism of having control over those, the triarch the abbess, the bishop, the bureaucrat, they'll take care of that. They are sacrificing that. They know things. And believe me, you don't want to know. Okay? They're gifting that because this knowledge, this knowing, it corrupts you. It corrupts you. And so the only way to be pure and to go out into the outer dark is to not know. And that is the sacrifice of the oath of ether. But they are not the only ones in the court. There's also the minor court of the Yeseer and the Naseer. Opposites, sort of like a jester and a depressor jester. And they have just enough power that they've made a bit of a compromise. And the compromise is that though it's illegal for anyone to even say who you were, your own spouse, your mother, your kids, if you have, no one at the penalty of capital punishment can tell you who you were because that will corrupt you. You will then know. But there's one little negotiation here that the Triarch very, very begrudgingly granted. And that is that at certain intervals, either the Yeseer or the Naseer can go out in the night when you, the player character, are away or asleep, and they can find somebody from the clearing, and they can guide them to the hill where they are, and they can allow them to stitch on your wound weft. Okay? And your wound weft is a tapestry. It's a mural that there are certain things that'll give you a stitch here, and when you get to a stitch lock, there's 15 of them total, then somebody is invited to make a picture. But they can only make a picture. They can't write anything. They cannot be specific. They can't do a stitching of, this is your child, this is what. It's just pictures, okay? And this, throughout play, these pictures that you're going to derive from the oracle, that the first upload that I did of the game, I freaking forgot to put this oracle, which is like the one of the center focuses of this game. The Chiaroscuro Liminalis is the oracle that I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't think I've ever made anything as good as this in my life. So it's an oracle that creates these sentences that I think I've seen 1,000 different configurations on here, and it still is like blowing me away. But it's not just this. The Chiaroscuro Liminalis is a little bit larger. And again, I re-uploaded it, and then I accidentally repeated the second and fourth column. Anyways, it's all good now. So this is the Chiaroscuro Liminalis, and you can use this, and you say, okay, you get to stitch a picture. Great. You can stitch a picture of a fractured sky filled with poisoned wind representing false prophets. Okay? That's just an example. Or you could use the general oracle for something more concrete. You don't even have to use the oracle, because when you get to a stitch lock and you make a picture, you draw a little picture. And I made this example to show you don't have to be a great artist. Just draw something. Doodle. And I wrote ideas of like, okay, blessed tree. I don't know. Here's a tree with like an egg that's shining. And as you fill this in, there won't be all this writing around. It's going to create a mural. And as you draw these things, they're going to mean something. But then as the mural fills itself out, it's going to take on new meanings. And this is you. This is your past. But it's also not. It's symbol. It's speaking to the inner core of who you are. And maybe when you made a silver feather the first time you thought it meant something. Maybe you were like, oh, I must have grown up privileged, like a silver feather coming out of my butt. But then suddenly you fill it in and it's next to this wolf. And now later you're like, maybe the wolf ate whatever that feather, maybe that means something different. Essentially, you are going to take the same affect that you would have towards like dreams with the wound weft, and it will get filled in throughout play. And you'll be able to see it, but you won't know really like what the person's trying to say. You won't have access to that. But it is the only way for people that loved you, maybe hated you. The only requirement for the naysayer or the yaysayer to have someone stitch on it is that they have to have like strong feelings about you one way or the other. And that comes from like a combination of the naysayer feeling that it's absurd to rob somebody of their memory, that how could you not have your memory? Without your memory, you can't feel some necessary level of miserable about yourself. And then the yaysayer is a jester and wants to create complications. Okay, so that is like a narrative progression. But there's also going to be a, you want there to be like progression of, you want to get better. You want to have access to new stuff. You want to get new powers, new skills and everything like that, right? So you're definitely going to have some loot, right? You can find some loot out there. I'll have a nice, easy action roll. I could probably go over that today. Again, I don't want to go too far into the mechanics because this video is already 45 minutes, but I just want to show you the big picture of this, and I can talk about this, but I think you'll see a lot of this stuff is when you read it, it's not simple, but I made it so that it's like once you get it, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense how that works. You'll have different NPCs you can generate in town to have objectives. You will have one of the systems that you'll have is path generation. And this is basically creating a quest so that you can have like goal-oriented travel into the darkness. And so this is definitely one of the things that I want to see how people use it and see like, maybe is this too many steps? Is it not enough? Is this the right way to track? But the way that you develop a path, I think is pretty cool. I'll get to that in a second, but you are going to get, in addition to that umbral, which is the currency you could buy stuff, you're also going to get a claim. And with a claim, and there's different travel. Oh, you don't want to look at that. There's different travel roles for everything. There's different tasks that you can do, right? That are like upkeep while you're traveling and sleeping. And there's also a mechanic of like increasing dim. Different things will advance your dim clock, and you'll get tired or exhausted. And if you keep traveling when you have that, you can advance the dread clock, which is the sort of bigger clock that will make those like wardens or mancers or whoever it is that's trying to get you, they'll come closer to you. But you can use that acclaim and you can pledge it to whatever member of the court that, your vision of things like aligns with. You can say the abbess is all about like the sanctity of sacrifice and the disposability of the flesh, right? And with each of them, they have advancement trees that you can pay certain acclaim, and you'll begin to see. Again, this is something I definitely want to balance and would love feedback on, like, is this too much HP I'm giving, etc. But everything is ready in here. But you basically can go to the bureaucrat, you can go to the abbess, you can go to the green bishop, and with paying, or the naysayer and the yaysayer are the ones that will help you advance your void stat, which is going to increase murmuration, which is the magic system in this game, which is really cool. It's a starling based magic system. But as you can see here, you can advance all of those trees up to tier 3. But then after that, you have to start specializing because you can only do 3 of them up to tier 6. So, I don't think I said that right, but I think you can get it from what I say here. And then only one of them can max out to tier 10. Okay. And after that, like late game, you can give a claim to the Child Queen in her honor and stuff and keep advancing your HP and things like that. But essentially, that's like how you're going to build your character's strength. And you also have these, rather than a quest, you follow a path. And there's, like I said, there's this path tracking sheet. And with that, there's a whole bunch of systems to generate different paths. You could do it from talking to the NPCs in town. I have NPC path generators. I have like 16 set NPCs who sell different things and ask for different things. You can get them from the major or minor court. They can generate paths. And you will decide whether that path is a hike, a sojourn, a trek, a quest, or a pilgrimage, okay? And after you determine how difficult it is, I hope people enjoy this in the way that I hope they do. You look how difficult it is and say that it's just a sojourn. That means you get 1, 2. I know there's people that are like, oh no, cards, just hang on. These are just a shorthand for something. You get 6 challenge cards, okay? When you go out, then you generated this path. You say, here's my objective. I'm going to find a glass harmonica. The reason I created this is because like there are general travel and encounter rules for just when you're going out and exploring. But you know, these NPCs, the court, they're going to have specific stuff for you to find. So it's like, I need a glass harmonica. Am I going to roll on these tables until I find a freaking glass harmonica? No. So I'll say my path is I'm going to find this rare relic, and you'll go through and you'll do travel as normal. But when you roll a 10, 11, or 12 and get, or doubles, you then move to the path table and flip a card. And the cards will have different meanings, right? The king might be an enemy encounter. It might be a trap. It might be whatever. And these are more vague. These are more like narrative based. And you'll have to work out that beat. And if you succeed, you get to keep it. And if you don't, that king goes into the hand of darkness. And at the end, when you've flipped and resolved the last card, Joker probably shouldn't be in there, you maybe you did really well. Maybe you succeeded at 5 of them and all you had was a king here. You are going to look at your hand, and this would be really upsetting because King High beat my hand. Okay. But say you resolved all of them. That would not be an auto win because for each challenge level, there is one additional, there is a certain amount of additional darkness cards that, in addition to whatever cards they won, they also get, depending on the difficulty, 1, 2 darkness cards, and they go like this. Crap. So we had King High. We win that. What a terrible hand to explain this. But so we win. That means we get our objective. There's also a table that says, okay, did you have a high card? Did you have a pair? Whatever you had. That's what you're kind of comparing. I keep it very basic 5-card poker stuff. And even if you didn't get what your objective was, like based on if you have a 3 of a kind, you'll get like this many currency, this many experience points, etc. So no one goes home empty-handed. But the idea is you then can bring whatever you find. Maybe it's a relic, maybe it's a person, maybe you had to go bury something, maybe you had to go find something out, maybe there's somebody in town who's a botanist and they wanted you to get a rare plant. If you win your hand, your challenge hand versus the hand of darkness, you get that thing you're looking for. Narratively, you can bring it back, or maybe what you found, you're like, no, I'll keep it. you can do that. Okay. And as you go on, though, you will have the opportunity, if you fulfill these quests, not only will you get umbral and acclaim and advancement on the path, the patronage tables, you'll also start having opportunities for having access to the truths of the world. And I'm not going to show that page, but it is upside down, right? And on that page, there are 5 levels of what is actually going on. And in fact, in part 1 here, I only put 3 of them. And so you can look at those at certain intervals you want, but please do not look at those when you just start the game. It will not ruin the experience, but I think it'll take away a lot of fun. So that's another advancement thing, because I wanted there to be opportunities to advance, like both narratively and mechanically. Okay. The last thing I'm just going to mention, I think, is mechanics-wise. I talked about the dim clock. Everything is based around that action roll, right? You're going to create your pilgrim. Instead of 3 stats, I made there to be 4. Flesh, sight, void, lore, which is kind of like strength or constitution, agility, accuracy, is that ever said? Intelligence, and like wisdom, other world connection. You'll generate that, and you don't know who your character is, right? So you have things like, what was your childhood? Did you have a loving home, religious family? Your profession. I can't say what profession you were. You can't remember it, but I can look at my hands. So it's like you worked with your hands, +1 flesh. You watch from the shadows. You're a street urchin, maybe, +1 sight, etc. And then what's your accoutrement? Like, are you in tattered clothes? Are you in real finery? These will say things about you. And everything comes down to this action roll, but I just needed to build out the action roll just a little bit. And this was actually the challenge, was not going overboard. Again, it's like I wanted it to be a dependable car. I didn't want it to be a Lamborghini, but I also did not want it to be the Ford Pinto from Pimp My Ride, where it's like I took a $6,000 car and added $40,000 worth of stuff just to make it work. 1 second, let me find this sheet. All right, we'll do it on here. So yeah, just like Tunnel Goons, you want to do a check. You figure out the difficulty score. Here are some difficulty scores. If it's routine, 7 or less. Elite difficulty, 16. And you roll 2d6. That's your effort, right? That's your base effort. I got a 4 and a 3, a 7. And then I add whatever ability, which is stats in this game. So say it was like dodging something, I'd use sight, which is like reaction time. And say my sight is 2, I have 9. And let's say our difficulty that we're trying to overcome is 11. And then you can look at your items, weapons, and tags to add a plus, like +1s. So everything, unless it's very specific, gives you a +1. And you tally all that up, and you could be resourceful and creative, and you say, did you meet or exceed it? Great, you succeeded. If not, you have a failure. And the failures in terms of like, the strong hit, weak hit system, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want people like, I agree that sometimes with those kind of games, everyone has their own taste, but for those kind of games, I do find myself agreeing more often with the group that's like, everything's a weak hit. I'm constantly like giving myself like a success, but not really. And so it's like, okay, you succeed, you fail, let's figure out a consequence. And I tried to make stuff like this here just to summarize it as much as possible. Everything that could be a modifier, what all the abilities mean. Advantage and disadvantage is basically you do a 3d6 and take the best. Inventory, It's just like Tunnel Goons, different item types. I show the different things. You just decide what size an item is. And then we have tags. And tags, I think, are great because, again, as I've said in other videos, they're the meeting point for mechanics and narrative. And yes, like you can make up your own tags whenever you need. You definitely do not need to memorize this, but just because I played other games with tags and it didn't, I've made a, you could say, comprehensive glossary of tags that you can use here. I did 3 pages of it. I also did a glossary of just terms that you'll use and stuff. But yeah, so these tags, there's 3 different types of tags. One of them is a situation tag, and I have ways to track this on your certificate of pilgrimage, which is like your player character sheet here. But I also have a tag tracker. Let's see which one people like more. But yeah, so you have like situational tags. Situational tags are like, it's dark, the road is wet. Things that are just like happening that may have an influence on something right now. Everyone here is crying. That would create a tag, right? That would make the vibe weird. So it's anything that like affects the vibe or the environment or whatever. And then we have condition tags, which can be attached to you, an enemy, whatever. And they basically are temporary tags that render these effects for a certain amount of rounds or days or roods, which I did find is a word for roads that I found was an actual, used to be called roods. And yeah, I put like tracking on here for duration. And so that could be things like poisoned, enraged, blinded, things like that. And then there are these fixed tags, which do not have duration. They are affixed to a player character, until something happens to get rid of them, right? And those can either be helpful or not helpful. So you might be like, a fixed tag might be like pariah. Maybe you did something that everyone in town doesn't like you. Every time you have to negotiate with somebody, you have to apply that tag and -1 to the roll. Okay. And I like these because you could be creative with it. You could say, you don't want to be like, some of you are just going to be that player who, no matter what, is like, what if I said my pariah tag gives me a +1 here because this lady seems like she has 2 tattoos, so maybe she likes people that are sort of outcast. Go for it. Knock yourself out. But I just like these as modifiers, and everything is basically +1. So you tally up all that you got, and you see if you succeeded or not. Simple as, friends. So we can get in deeper with that. I'm sorry that it was a bit of a scatter shot. I haven't slept in some time, so I'm gonna get on that, and then we can talk about it a little bit more. But if you decide to take a chance on this, I really, really appreciate the support. I always say it's not really about the money, but it's just that I for whatever reason, I often say like I don't want $500, but I would love $105 bills, is because like my lizard brain goes, ooh, fun, like this is a treat. You can get a comic book, you can get a popsicle, whatever. And so I always create an incentive for myself, just to be productive and to make sure I keep going, because I've just learned ways that I need to motivate and encourage myself so that I see it through to the end. And I'm really proud of myself, and I'm really happy with this. I think it's a cool game. Like, I like playing it, and I hope you could play it too, because I cannot play test this worth a damn. Whenever I play test, I go about 3 minutes, and then I go, oh, that's actually a great idea. And then I start writing something, and I just stop. So, I think they're the core mechanics of the game. I want to sort of stay on track with those. If you have something wildly different that you think it would be great, just you should make that game or make a supplement. That's fine. I don't care if you use this game for that kind of stuff, but I would love to hear if something is like erroneous or if it's unclear or if it is if it just doesn't make sense or something like that, or balance stuff. Balance stuff is what I'm really thinking about, in terms of like the advancement trees. Did I make something too powerful? Did I make something something that you have to save up for 10 years of real time and it doesn't do anything? This relic generator too, I really want this to work as well. So anyways, there's lots of stuff in here, and we're gonna keep on it. But the main premise of it here is, I think this says it all here. The red books, the Vulgati, are these things that your character really doesn't know, but the High Court wants these red books. Okay, you might even call them a red book or a Liber Novus, and they need to process them. So you need to go find them so that they can properly dispose of them. Right? You don't want to start reading them. That would be bad, right? You don't want to find stuff out, because I gotta tell you from experience, there is nothing worse than like knowing about something. Okay, I have to go. I hope this button works. Yes.